So this newest One Piece chapter had some amazing stuff, from Loki talking about him interacting with Rox Xebec and his right-hand man Whitebeard aka Newgate back in the days when he was a kid, to Gabon showing his incredible power, to of course Loki confirming that he does know things about red hair that he needs to tell Luffy. This chapter had so many amazing things, and I thought I should get straight into it, not get this intro to be too long, just do a deep dive on One Piece chapter 1145. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because I got some big videos dropping this week. And one thing I have to tell you guys is this, the production on this channel has improved drastically. So guys, you have to support the channel, guys. I want 1,000 likes for this video because I can only give you guys high production if you guys are supporting the channel. If you guys are not supporting the channel, it'll go back to its old production where I'm still doing great discussions, but the quality of editing won't be the best. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, which I have a separate video going to be dropping soon on this topic, but I thought I would talk about it because it's the main thing in this chapter that really got my attention, is Loki reminiscing about Rox Xebec. It's a character who pretty much changed the landscape of the One Piece universe. I have to keep it real. The Rock's theories were insane, and Loki says he was born in the wrong era, showing how much he wished he was in his prime when he met Rox Xebec. Because if Rox Xebec met a prime Loki that only Shanks could take down, yeah, he would have definitely been a part of that crew. Of course, Whitebeard told him to relax when he used an actual weapon on Loki as a kid, and Rox told Whitebeard shut up, showing how powerful Rox is. Yo, have we ever seen a character tell Whitebeard to shut up? Like, we saw Whitebeard telling Shiki to shut up during their meeting. So to see Rox telling Whitebeard to shut up shows how powerful he was and gets us hyped up for Roger versus Rox. I think probably still one of the most hyped fights in the story, and it's in the past. Think about that I want to see. Think about that. So guys, I know we've seen Whitebeard and Roger, so Rox versus Roger is going to be insane. Garp versus Roger still has to be seen too as well. So there's a lot of unseen past fights that I do have to talk about in thorough, but Oda should be revealing them because it is the final saga. Now, the next hype thing I have to talk about in this chapter is Gabon. The way he took down that fake Loki with his axes was pretty insane, but it is to be expected from a guy who was the left-hand man of the Pirate King. And I want to mention this, nobody's talking about how Gabon is using his haki on steroids this entire arc, and this chapter was no excuse. He did it again, guys. He did use the haki to extreme levels, sensing the 3 Holy Knights, plus a strange voice. I wonder if it's one of the 3 Holy Knights or it could be someone else. It could be maybe revolving around Gonko. We know the Seraphims are able to use haki, and if Gonko is a Seraphim, that theory of Gonko being a Seraphim planted by Vegapunk to of course work for the Revolutionary, if that is true, that would be insane. But yes, Gabon's haki is an insane level, and if he has Conqueror's haki, like Oda's teasing it with of course him fighting Luffy, and it looked like he had Conqueror's haki coding, but we weren't too sure. And now of course we're seeing this moment of using incredible haki. If he does have Conqueror's haki coding, all these Sanji fans are gonna go crazy because we all know that Luffy and Zoro have Conqueror's haki coding. So if Sanji has it, it really stamps Sanji on the same level as Zoro, which is going to be a huge argument. Is Zoro on the same level as Sanji, or is there a gap? There's always been that argument since the beginning of the series. Now, the next main thing I have to talk about in this chapter is Loki confirms, as Zoro questioned if he was even telling the truth about having information on red hair Shanks. Loki confirms it is true that he does actually have information on red hair Shanks, which makes sense because if you remember, Shanks recently visited Loki and used Conqueror's haki. So when Luffy used it, they're like, oh, didn't Shanks just do that recently? The minions of Loki said this. So this confirms that Loki did have a meeting recently when Shanks, right before Shanks destroyed Eustace Kid, which makes me think is revolved around Blackbeard. Does Loki know about Shanks and Blackbeard's beef? Does it connect to Xebec? Because we know Blackbeard's ship is called Saber Xebec. And how does Eustace Kid go all into this, tie all into this? All I know is Loki is probably going to be one of the biggest hype factors for Shanks versus Blackbeard that I think is going to happen at the end of this arc. For some reason, I think Shanks versus Blackbeard is going to happen at the end of this arc. And I talked about how Roger versus Rox is one of the greatest fights. Blackbeard versus Shanks is one of the greatest fights that have yet to happen, guys. So can't wait till Oda shows us that. We also see Loki explaining the Holy Knights, and of course he was questioning, like, did he run into them in the past? Like, are they former enemies? And he's like, if he clashed with them, he would have been king of the world. Loki's saying this is very interesting because we all know that Rox Xebec's goal was to be king of the world. And we know we had to deal with, of course, we saw Gorosei Saturn on God Valley. We saw Celestial Dragon Holy Knights on God Valley. So does Loki know about the God Valley incident? That's a really good question right there. Also, he said he would have been king of the world. Does he know about Nero no Imu? what does Loki know? I know he wants to be the sun god Nika, but Loki is definitely being very interesting in the statements he's making in this arc. And I gotta admit, yo, One Piece has been doing a great job when it comes to lore, and Elbaf is doing a great job when it comes to Big Mom lore. Seeing Goldberg from the New Giant Pirates have a shield that is belonged to a homie. This is why arcs like Whole Cake Island are really important, because we would have never knew this minor detail if we didn't go through arcs like this, where we saw Big Mom actually make homies in the entire Whole Cake Island. When he talks about how his father fought Big Mom, and of course was surprised that Nami has a top homie commander in Zeus as a servant. This lore is amazing for a reason, because it kind of hypes up Big Mom returning. If Big Mom returns to Elbaf, is gonna be one of the greatest things in this arc, honestly. Like, Big Mom coming to Wano was kind of like, oh my gosh, Big Mom's coming to Wano. Like, we just saw you in Whole Cake Island. It was still hype, but like, it was, some people were hating on it. But Big Mom coming to Elbaf, because the lore has been built up, if Big Mom comes to Elbaf and she doesn't have no nerfs and she just comes there wrecking shit, fans are not going to hate on it, guys. We're going to love it. So I think definitely this is good to hype up Big Mom's return. And I have to admit, Jinbei showing why he's a top Yonko commander, because a lot of times Zoro and Sanji are going to get a lot of praise because they're the top 2 Yonko commanders. Just like, look at King and Queen, look at Katakuri and Smoothie, look at Marco and Jozu. Like, the strongest top 2 commanders usually get the hype. Just look at the Pirate King crew when it comes to Rayleigh and Scarpa Gabon. But I think that 3rd spot is really important when it comes to commander spot. We saw Jack, of course, when it comes to Kaido, and we saw the disses that Jack got. So seeing Jinbei being a 3rd commander on the Pirate King's crew and throwing water makes me think also, I wonder who that 3rd commander, obviously Kozuki Oden is probably the 3rd commander of the Pirate King crew, but there's got to be another guy before Kozuki Oden that's extremely powerful. That was that 3rd guy, and I can't wait to see who Oda is gonna reveal as the strongest Roger Pirate after Scarpa Gabon. So Jinbei doing this water technique, and remind me of course, Marine Ford and Impel Down when he's doing so many cool things, was cool to see. Of course, the firefighting crew tried their best, but Jinbei showed why he's such a clutch member of the Straw Hat Pirates. So he's really showing he's one of the most important members of the Straw Hat Pirates. So the Jinbei haters gotta go sleep. And that last page was cool because we're finally getting a Holy Knight versus the Straw Hat Pirates, something we've been waiting for the entire arc, because we know these are going to be the main faction of the villains and the main heroes of the Straw Hat Pirates. It's going to be the Holy Knights versus a Yonko crew. Seeing Gonko versus Jinbei, Brook, Nami, and Usopp, and Colin, Scarpa Gabon's son, half giant son. This is going to be interesting. Now, obviously, the New World song better be sung by Brook while he's whooping ass, and Gonko's got to be shaking. Okay, let me relax a little bit. But Gonko has aura. With that arrow Del Fruit, she has aura in that last panel, guys. I cannot deny she looks powerful. And the Revolutionary Army theory makes a lot of sense, since Gonko's the first one to interact with the Straw Hat Pirates. Maybe she reveals, like, kind of reminded me of Egghead Island when we saw, of course, seeing the Vegapunk Lilith, of course, first introduction. It kind of reminds me of that, guys. And you guys all know I'm a fan of action sequences, and the anime is going to do this part justice. But seeing Goldberg, of course, use his shield to block the dinosaur, and then seeing Sanji propel Zoro in this combo attack to cut the head of the dinosaur was super cool. It kind of gave me Little Garden vibes, but it also gave me Wano vibes when it comes to them fighting dinosaurs in King and Queen, where this dinosaur looked like a Walmart version of Queen. So it was cool to see Zoro take on this shit version of Queen. But I thought it was really cool to see this action sequence. The anime is going to do a much better job though, because action sequences are just better when it comes to animation. And right after this was pretty cool seeing Zoro and Sanji argue. Like, Zoro's like, I'm the one who took down the dinosaur, and Sanji was making fun of him, saying a flying broccoli. It was pretty cool to see the insults between them. It's the reason why we love One Piece. Little moments like this, little details like this that we happen pre-time skip way more often than post-time skip. Post-time skip has been more serious and more like, we gotta get the One Piece. Pre-time skip is more so just the journey, and I feel like moments like this really give me pre-time skip vibes, which I think is the reason why so many One Piece fans love One Piece. You have to go through pre-time skip to become a One Piece diehard fan, not a casual. And I also thought it was hilarious seeing Luffy burn Loki with the meat and then burn him with the soup. That was comedy. And then seeing Gerd cheer on Luffy because, of course, they don't like Loki. Sanji even realizes the hate for Loki is insane. Like, what did he do to make these dudes so mad on Elbaf? You guys all know that meme. But yeah, definitely Loki being pain, it's kind of giving me a vibe where Loki and Luffy are going to be allies. I don't know what it is, but they seemingly look to be future friends. I hope so, guys, because Luffy is treating him like really good compared to what I've seen Luffy treat other characters. So I would love to see Luffy and Loki fight together in Gear 5 giant form. And Loki, look how big Loki is. It's going to be insane to see them fight a huge character. I don't know who's going to be. Could it be Nerona Imu? I'm not too sure, but definitely Loki's going to be probably a staple, a huge part in the final war. Also, I have to mention Saul. We seen him do that hockey punch that was super cool. So to see Saul also beat the Fëanor was that wolf that of course is part of Ragnarok, was definitely cool to see. Saul, of course, we all look for him when it comes to knowledge of O'Hara, of course, and Robin and whatever, but Saul's still a former Vice Admiral, guys, and seeing him use hockey, seeing a giant use hockey to a punch, like, you gotta understand, Saul is one of the stronger characters on Elbaf. I have to give him respect where respect is due. And then of course seeing Summers and Gunko speak on the kids burning up, and Gunko having no emotions, like Robin just speaking of how the bones are gonna burn and they're gonna cry for their parents. Of course Summers is enjoying it. Summers is a cynical guy. He's a villainous guy. I'll be honest with you, of all the characters of the Holy Knight so far, Summers is the most villainous. Maybe Shamrock can compete with him, but he is evil because of how happy he is talking about evilness. So definitely going to be very satisfying seeing Summers get his ass whooped. Some people are saying Sanji's going to be his opponent. I'm not too sure. A lot of people have been theorizing that because you have to remember, guys. Remember that Gorosei, Jupiter? Everyone thought that was Sanji related. Well, that's Summers' relative, guys. So it's going to be cool to see what goes down in these moments of Elbaf. And the final thing I should talk about is the cover story. Yamato looks to have some new scabbards. Yes, page 1 and OT look to be future unlinks to Yamato, maybe even Who's Who knows. Honestly, it could be an Ashura Doji version of Who's Who. Remember how Ashura Doji fought Odin and then he joined? Who's Who could have lost to Yamato and then join and be the strongest one of the strongest scabbards. But if Yamato has former Flying Six a part of his scabbards, that would just be crazy, guys, to comprehend. And if Yamato joins in the final war with these characters, it will be cool. Honestly, Yamato could even have a whole crew is getting page 1 ulti and Who's Who on her crew. But I love seeing this cover story. This Yamato cover story is a sight to see because we're so fresh off Wano. I know Egghead Island was in between Elbaf, but still, Wano, I still feel like we're in Wano, guys. Like, it was because we were in Wano for so long, so it's like it's hard to get that Wano feeling out of you until, of course, Egghead Island Elbaf is helping. But until we're in the middle of Elbaf, that's when I'm probably going to be like, okay, yeah, I got my fill of what's going on. But yeah, this chapter was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed it, guys, and there's gonna be some big videos dropping, so of course subscribe to the channel, like the video, and guys, One Piece has been on fire lately, especially this Elbaf arc. So if you cannot love Elbaf, maybe you just don't love One Piece. Maybe that's my guess. Honestly, I just think Elbaf's so good. If you're a diehard One Piece fan, like, how can you hate on it?